Arthur Schopenhauer once said something very harsh about women. His words sound rude, unfair, and shocking today. He described women in a way that feels insulting and cold, but these words did not come from an ordinary man. Schopenhauer was a famous philosopher who believed that life is full of pain and disappointment. He thought happiness is short, and love often leads to suffering. So before we quickly judge his words, it's worth asking a deeper question. What kind of loneliness, fear, or heartbreak can push a person to think this way? Maybe his words say less about women and more about his own struggles with desire, rejection, and emotional pain. Sometimes, strong insults hide personal wounds. They reveal fear, not strength. What do you think about this perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The hidden engine of human wanting. To understand why a thinker like Schopenhauer became so distant and skeptical about love, we need to look at how he believed the world truly works. In his view, the universe is not run by fairness, reason, or kindness. Beneath everything, he believed there is something much simpler and harsher at work. A constant inner pressure, a force that never rests. He called this force the will. This is not willpower or motivation as we usually understand it. It is not a conscious choice. Instead, it is a deep unconscious drive that pushes every living thing forward, to stay alive, to grow, to reproduce, to continue existing no matter the cost. You can see it in nature everywhere. Plants forcing their way through hard ground, animals fighting to survive, humans holding on to life even when life feels unbearable. This force does not ask whether life is fair or meaningful. It does not care about comfort or happiness. It simply pushes forward. From this endless push comes desire, the constant wanting of something more attention, more pleasure, more success, more love, more meaning. But Schopenhauer saw a problem hidden inside desire itself. The moment you want something, it means you do not have it. And that space between wanting and having is where pain begins. Even when a desire is fulfilled, the relief never lasts. Soon, a new want appears. The mind moves on, the emptiness returns. So life becomes a loop. Wanting, brief satisfaction, disappointment, and wanting again. According to Schopenhauer, this loop is strongest in romantic love. Love feels special, it feels deep, meaningful, and almost spiritual. It feels like destiny, like truth. But he believed this feeling was an illusion, the most convincing illusion the will ever created. He argued that when we fall in love, it is not the soul making a free choice, it is biology doing its work. Attraction is not designed for your happiness, it is designed to keep life going. That intense pull toward another person, the obsession, the belief that this person completes me. Schopenhauer did not see poetry in it, he saw programming, a powerful mental spell that quiets reason. You stop analyzing, you stop questioning, you give in, and by giving in, you unknowingly serve a purpose older than your thoughts, the continuation of life. From this perspective, love is not two equal partners seeking fulfillment. It is nature using emotion as a tool. Feelings become the bait. Desire becomes the hook. Dreams become the disguise. And once the biological goal is met, the fire often cools, passion fades, the magic weakens. What once felt extraordinary becomes ordinary, difficult, or restless. Not because people are cruel, but because the force that started the fire was never meant to keep burning forever. This was Schopenhauer's view of love. Not fate, not destiny, but nature's most clever strategy. And if love is a mechanism rather than something sacred, then human choices in love may be less romantic and far more calculated than we like to believe, the pattern behind human attraction. If love is more than emotion, if it is connected to biology and survival, then attraction stops looking like a magical mystery and starts looking like a system. Not heartless, not evil, simply practical. For most of human history, choosing a partner was not about romance alone. It was about staying alive in a dangerous world. A bad choice did not just lead to emotional pain. It could mean starvation, danger, or the loss of future generations. Because of this, human instincts slowly formed over thousands of years. These instincts helped people choose partners who increased the chances of safety, stability, and survival. These instincts do not speak clearly or logically. They work through feelings. He feels reliable. She feels safe with him. He seems capable. I trust where he's going. What we often call romance is built on much older foundations than poetry or fantasy. This leads to a concept many people misunderstand: hypergamy. Outside of online drama, hypergamy simply describes a recurring pattern seen across cultures, a natural attraction toward partners who appear to offer upward movement in protection, competence, or stability. This does not only mean money or luxury, it means signs of strength and capability. In early human history, this could be physical strength or survival skills. In modern life, it often appears as confidence, direction, emotional control, ambition, leadership, or social intelligence, traits that signal someone can handle pressure and move forward in life. This does not mean women sit down and calculate relationships like a business deal. These responses happen below conscious thought. They are shaped by instincts that existed long before modern society. This is where pain often enters the story. When a relationship ends and a woman chooses someone perceived as higher in some area, many men experience it as a personal failure. I wasn't good enough. But from a biological viewpoint, it is rarely about personal worth or moral judgment. It is about responding to signals of security, progress, and direction. Nature does not ask, who is the kindest? Who loved the hardest? Who meant well? Nature asks one simple question: which connection offers the best chance of stability and future success? That question is not emotional, and when emotional beings get caught inside it, the result can feel cruel, even when no one intended harm, because love is how humans experience connection. But attraction, at its deepest level, is directional. It moves towards strength, growth, and momentum. So when people say, she changed, or she wanted more, it is often not a sudden shift in values. It is an instinct reacting to movement, or the absence of it. This isn't about assigning blame, it's about recognizing a system most people are never taught exists. Without understanding it, rejection feels unfair and personal. With understanding, rejection becomes misalignment, painful but not mysterious, and that awareness can lead to resentment or to growth. When hurt hardens into bitterness, deep emotional pain rarely arrives with noise or drama. It doesn't always come with tears or arguments. More often it settles quietly. It shows itself as withdrawal, as emotional distance, as a guarded look where openness once lived. When a man loses someone he cared deeply about, the pain is rarely only about losing her. The deeper wound is what the loss seems to say about him, not just, she chose to leave, but I was not enough. That message cuts far deeper than the breakup itself. The pain sharpens when the person she moves on with appears to possess what he feels he lacked: more confidence, clearer direction, stronger presence, higher social standing, or greater certainty. The comparison becomes unavoidable. More becomes the echo in his mind. He replays the relationship again and again. The effort he gave, the loyalty, the compromises, the times he stayed when it was difficult. And still, he was replaced. Confusion slowly turns into explanation. And explanation, when shaped by pain, hardens into belief. Being kind doesn't matter. Love isn't real. Women only value power or status. These ideas are often not reasoned conclusions. They are emotional shields, because the deeper truth is much harder to face. I gave what I knew how to give, and it wasn't enough to create desire. That realization threatens identity itself. Many men grow up believing their worth comes from providing security, consistency, and protection. When those qualities exist, but attraction fades anyway, it feels like the rules changed without warning. No one taught them that emotional safety and sexual attraction are not the same thing. So the mind searches for something easier to hold. Blame is simpler than grief. Anger is safer than vulnerability. Broad judgments are easier than personal reflection. This is where a psychological turning point appears. Pain that is faced becomes understanding. Pain that is avoided becomes resentment. Resentment often wears the mask of strength. It speaks confidently. It sounds certain. It presents itself as truth. But beneath that armor is usually something fragile. A man who wanted to be chosen and felt rejected. This is why dark philosophers and pessimistic ideas often resonate so strongly after heartbreak. Their harsh conclusions feel validating. Their bleak worldview feels like honesty. But there is a risk hidden there. When personal pain is turned into a universal rule, healing stops. The wound becomes part of identity. And instead of asking, what does this teach me? The question shifts to, who is at fault? What many men learn too late. There is a hard lesson many men only understand after heartbreak. When they first see it, it feels deeply unfair. You can be a decent man and still not be desired. You can be loyal, patient, emotionally open, dependable, and sincere. You can do everything people say matters in a relationship and still feel unnoticed when it comes to attraction. Because being good and being desired are not the same thing. Goodness is about values. Desire is about energy. Goodness says, I'm here for you. Desire asks, do I feel something alive and powerful here? One creates safety, the other creates spark. Many boys grow up learning how to be harmless rather than how to be grounded. They're taught to follow rules, avoid conflict, suppress intensity, and seek approval. These traits can make someone trustworthy and respectable, but attraction does not grow from respect alone. It responds to qualities that are felt more than explained: a sense of direction, inner certainty, calm, strength under pressure, the feeling that this person is moving forward, not waiting for permission. When these signals are missing, a kind man may not be rejected outright. He may simply feel invisible, not unwanted, just unfelt. That is what makes it so confusing. He followed the instructions, he played the role he was taught, but the instructions were incomplete. No one explained that attraction is shaped less by what you do for someone and more by how you stand within yourself. When a man builds his identity around being needed, something subtle begins to shift. He becomes careful. He adapts too much. He focuses on keeping harmony rather than holding his ground. Slowly, without realizing it, he stops living from his center and starts performing. His sense of worth moves outside himself. Is she pleased? Is she pulling away? Am I doing enough to keep her? His attention turns outward, and his inner stability weakens. This creates a quiet pressure, not loud or obvious, but present. And attraction instinctively moves away from pressure. Not because anyone is cruel, but because desire is drawn to grounded energy, not emotional dependence. So when the relationship ends, it feels like betrayal or injustice. But often, it was the result of mislearning. He learned how to be reliable, not how to be rooted. He learned how to provide comfort, not how to project vitality. Once this difference is understood, everything begins to change. The focus shifts from blame to awareness, not why are women like this, but when did I stop standing firmly in myself? That question doesn't create anger, it creates clarity. And clarity is where real growth begins. The shift where pain becomes strength. Understanding these patterns can send a man in two very different directions. One direction pulls downward. It leads to resentment, blame, and endless replaying of what others did wrong. In that space, people gather around shared disappointment. Pain is repeated, reinforced, and slowly shaped into identity. Every rejection becomes evidence. Every story confirms the same conclusion. Over time, the world starts to feel like a trial where the judgment was decided long ago. But there is another direction. It is quieter, more demanding, and far less dramatic. It begins with a difficult but honest statement. This hurt me, boss, but it does not get to define my future. Most people avoid this moment because it requires responsibility without self-attack. It doesn't ask, what's wrong with me? It asks something harder. Where have I stopped developing? When a man ties his self-worth to being selected by someone else, his inner balance becomes unstable. His confidence rises and falls based on external approval. That is not strength. It is emotional dependence dressed up as loyalty. The real shift begins when value is pulled back inward, not through ego, not by pretending indifference, but through building something real. True confidence is not a performance. It grows from proof you create in your own life, proof that you can face discomfort, proof that you can move toward meaningful goals, proof that you can stay calm under pressure, proof that you can stand alone without breaking. This kind of strength cannot be taken by rejection because it was never given by validation. Here is the paradox many miss. The moment you stop shaping yourself to be attractive and start shaping yourself to become capable and aligned, your presence changes. Neediness fades because your life no longer revolves around one person. Urgency softens because you are already moving forward. Fear of loss weakens because you trust your ability to rebuild. You don't become detached, you become grounded. There is a deep calm that comes when your identity shifts from someone hoping to be chosen to someone actively becoming. Attraction responds to this grounded state, not as a trick, but because it signals stability. You are no longer seeking value, you are creating it. Rejection still hurts, but it no longer feels like destruction. It becomes information instead of judgment. You begin to see clearly, no single person ever carried your worth. They were someone you cared for, not the foundation of who you are. From this place, effort transforms. You strengthen your body to feel capable, not to impress. You build skills to expand your world, not to compete. You pursue purpose to feel aligned, not to be admired. And something subtle but powerful happens. Your presence deepens. You listen with intention. You speak with clarity. You stop chasing reactions. You stop shrinking to be accepted. Because you are no longer bargaining for identity. This is how pain becomes power, not through denial or blame, but through understanding and integration. The wound stops being a cage and becomes a guide. And with that shift, one truth becomes clear. You stop waiting to be chosen. You start choosing who you are becoming. Beyond loss, the path to inner sovereignty. Pain, rejection, and loss are unavoidable parts of loving deeply. Every man who opens himself to connection will face them at some point. What separates the man who collapses from the one who evolves is not the absence of pain, but how he understands it, carries it, and chooses what to build afterward. Arthur Schopenhauer believed suffering was not an accident of life, but its foundation. In his view, existence is driven by a restless force that never feels satisfied. This force pushes endlessly, creating desire without ever delivering lasting fulfillment. Love, attraction, and attachment become especially painful because they promise meaning while quietly renewing hunger. When Schopenhauer wrote about relationships, his bitterness reflected this realization. No single person can permanently satisfy the drive beneath human wanting. Where Schopenhauer stopped at diagnosis, Friedrich Nietzsche moved toward transformation. Rather than retreat into despair or denial, Nietzsche argued for transmutation, the ability to turn suffering into strength. His idea of the Übermensch was not about domination or ego, but about self-creation. This figure does not define himself by approval or rejection. He does not anchor his worth in who stays or leaves. He builds value internally and moves through life with direction and presence. For a man who has been emotionally wounded, this realization marks a critical turning point. Power does not come from being chosen. Worth is not measured by someone else's desire. When a man is overlooked or replaced by someone who appears more confident, more assertive, more established, it strikes something deep. It activates an ancient instinct tied to competence, protection, and purpose. When effort goes unseen, the pain feels fundamental. If ignored, that pain can harden into bitterness and shape how the world is interpreted. Growth begins when a man stops acting as if the world owes him recognition. Instead of chasing validation or replaying resentment, he asks a different question. What can I build that cannot be taken from me? The answer is never external. It is always internal. Strength is the first foundation. Not just physical strength, but emotional resilience. The ability to face rejection without losing self-respect. Mental discipline. The capacity to act according to long-term vision rather than short-term emotion. Moral steadiness. Choosing integrity even when it brings no immediate reward. Clarity follows. Heartbreak often scatters focus, pulling a man outward toward comparison and approval. Clarity pulls him back inward. It is knowing who he is, what he stands for, and what direction he is moving in. With clarity, life stops being reactive. Choices become intentional. Energy stops leaking into doubt. Purpose gives direction to strength and clarity. Without it, a man drifts between longing and resentment. Purpose is not applause-driven. It shows itself in daily effort, skill-building, progress, and creation. When purpose is present, momentum replaces stagnation. From this alignment, presence emerges. Presence is not performance. It cannot be faked or demanded. It is the quiet steadiness others feel instinctively. Presence signals that a man is not defined by circumstance, opinion, or outcome. He is anchored. Attraction responds to this, not because it is strategic, but because it reflects inner coherence. Here, philosophy comes full circle. Schopenhauer revealed the mechanisms of desire that leave men feeling empty or replaced. Nietzsche offered the counterweight, mastery of the self rather than control over others. For modern men, this means pain is not wasted. Rejection becomes information. Loss becomes instruction. Yes, it hurts when someone leaves. Yes, it can feel unbearable when she chooses someone who seems to possess qualities you lack. That reality cannot be erased. But the man who integrates it does not collapse. He rebuilds. He deepens. He refines his core until his sense of worth no longer depends on external choice. Self-mastery is the only position that cannot be stripped away. Approval cannot grant it. Rejection cannot remove it. From this place, a man can love without dependency, connect without fear, and accept impermanence without losing himself. The wound that once threatened to define him becomes fuel for evolution. The greatest power is not dominance, status, or control. It is self-command. It is knowing that regardless of who stays, who leaves, or who notices, your path is yours to shape, built on internal foundations that cannot be taken. In this way, pessimism transforms into insight, philosophy turns into practice, and heartbreak becomes a catalyst rather than a curse. Pain finds purpose. Loss creates depth. And the man moves forward, not to seek validation, but to fully claim himself. Stop asking to be chosen. Stop chasing approval. Stop measuring your value through someone else's attention, affection, or decision. None of that builds power. Build yourself instead. Build structure in your days. Build discipline in your habits. Build clarity in your direction. Build presence that comes from knowing who you are, not from hoping someone stays. When your sense of worth is anchored inside you, something fundamental changes. Rejection no longer feels like collapse. Distance no longer feels like panic. Loss no longer feels like erasure. Because you understand the truth most people never reach. Someone walking away is not a judgment of your value. It is a change of direction, nothing more. Love only becomes dangerous when your identity depends on it. Attraction only becomes a prison when your self-worth is outsourced. The moment you reclaim ownership of your life, your body, your mind, your purpose, love loses its power to break you. It stops being a trap. It becomes a choice. And you are no longer desperate to be chosen. Because you are already standing on something solid. This is where real confidence lives. Not in dominance, not in control, not in bitterness, but in self-command. If this message resonated with you, don't let it pass like entertainment. Reflect on it. Apply it. Build from it. Leave a comment with your takeaway. Subscribe if you want more content on self-mastery, strength, and clarity. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the strongest men are not the ones who are never hurt. They are the ones who turn pain into direction. And that is real power.